Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Starting with the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. I hope and believe you are all fine, and I am praying for your good health and prosperity when I am discussing the applied aspects of epidemiology. This is my 7th talk regarding epidemiology, and we have seen that the out of descriptive, observational epidemiology, descriptive, in first descriptive we saw the case control, case series, case report, case series, correlational, ecological, and of course cross-sectional and prevalence type of studies. Then is the analytical type. Headline is observational, subline is analytical, and first was case control study, or I can say prospective study. That is the way we follow a case and we see, we go back with a case. Retrospective study, we go back and see the causative agent, when it was applied, when it started working, when the patient was or the other normal people were under the influence of the causative factor, and now what has happened. In this type of study, or the cohort study, we go ahead. It is a prospective type of study where we follow an exposed group of the people. We follow an exposed group of the people to certain specific causative agent. We see the smokers, we follow them, and we see how many of them develop lung cancer and how many do not. And that is how we know this is actually a sort of a longitudinal or following type of a study, cohort study, or we follow a cohort, a group of the people, and we see what happens in next. By definition, a cohort is a group of people who share a common characteristic or experience as age, occupation, exposure to a drug or vaccine or certain other factor, pregnancy, etc. within a defined time period. So we can say by other means, cohort is a group of the people who share the common exposure, who share the common conditions in which they are exposed to certain causative agent of a disease. In cohort study, two groups are selected. Those are exposure or study cohort and comparison or control cohort. So obviously one group is which is exposed to certain causative agent or to certain factor, and other control group is the one which is not exposed to the causative agent or the specific disease. And we have to see, we follow this case. This is, again I repeat, it's a prospective type of study. We follow the case and we see what happens in next. So those cohorts are defined prior to the appearance of the disease under investigation and are observed over a period of time to determine the risk of developing the disease under study. The study thus proceeds forward from cause to the effect. I repeat, cause to the effect. We follow, we know certain some cohort is exposed to certain cause, certain causative agent, certain factor, and we see whether that cohort develops that disease or not. So the study thus proceeds forward from cause to the effect, so is known as prospective or forward looking study. It is also called concurrent cohort or longitudinal study. So too many names. Do not forget prospective, forward study, prospective study, forward study, concurrent study or longitudinal study, because the investigator identifies the original population at the beginning of the study and in effect accompanies the subjects concurrently through calendar time until the point at which the disease develops or does not develop. The time frame, the incubation period, the appearance of the disease, the time in which the disease can occur, we follow that for that time and we see whether the disease has occurred or not, and if has occurred, to how many people it has occurred. The difficulty is that the study takes years to complete. It is a time consuming job and it takes years to be completed. Cohort studies are indicated when exposure is of the rare occurrence. So cohort studies are indicated when exposure is of the rare occurrence, but the incidence of its effects is high among the exposed, such as exposure to chemicals in industrial concerns and exposure to X-rays, etc., etc., where some of the people they develop the carcinoma of the skin, or the say for example pancytopenia and other problems with X-rays, and same is the case if certain industrial chemicals may be causing certain cancers of the body. So maybe the blood cancer. So that the population selected should be cooperative, easily accessible. Attrition should be at its minimum, and the basic design of a simple cohort study is represented in the following 2x2 table, which we have already seen in the case control studies. That is the one cohort, that is the individuals exposed to the etiological factor, and other cohort is the individual not exposed to the etiological factor in the study. So if in the cohort of those group of those people who are exposed to certain etiological factors, then the answer is for the disease is whether the disease is present or the disease is absent, A and B. So the total is A plus B is equal to total cohort. The same is the case with the individual not exposed to the etiological factors under study, that this cohort again represented in C and D. C is for those who produce the disease but they were not exposed to certain factors, for example cigarette smoking, and the disease is cancer lung. So the individuals who were exposed to the, who were used to take the cigarettes, who were smokers, those who presented with the disease, they were kept under A category, and those who did not present the disease with the disease, they were kept under B category. Same is the case here. Individuals not exposed to the cigarette smoking and who presented with the disease, they were kept under C, and those who did not have the disease or absent the disease, they were kept under D. So C plus D is the total cohort of those individuals who were not exposed to the disease, and A plus B is that cohort which is exposed to the disease, but A develops the disease and B did not develop the disease. The elements of a cohort study are the first of all the selection of study subjects and the selection of the comparison groups. One is we need the subject which is exposed to the certain causative agent or to the certain factor, and of course the comparison or the control group, which is the normal population, which is having very much comparable factors with them: sex, age, exposure, the ecological factors, the atmosphere, the environment, the socioeconomic habits, all those are more or less fitting into each other, and only the factor is the causative agent is exposure. Then is the follow-up. We follow up them, we go along with them, we follow up in this cohort. This cohort is a prospective type of cohort, and then is analysis. Finally we analyze the results. So first of all, the selection of the study subjects. Who can be a cohort group? Who can be a cohort group? The subjects of cohort study are usually selected in one of the two ways, either from the general population or select groups of the population. That is, doctors, nurses, lawyers, teachers, civil servants, etc., etc., or exposure groups, that is the radiologists exposed to X-rays. So we select from the general population, from the groups of the general population, or from the specific subjects, or from the I can say from the specific selected or different group of the population, as the radiologists who are exposed to the X-rays, or certain other workers working in the chemical industry. So those may be. First of all, the selection. Then is the selection of the comparison groups. Selection of the comparison group, this may be internal comparison. Internal comparison is an easy way to do this. Here there is one cohort, and we find out the different people in this cohort with the same character. We find with the same characteristic, but find them with the outcome. We separate the members of the cohort on the basis of the outcome. What is that basis? So internal comparison, here no outside comparison group is required, but a single cohort enters the study, and its members are classified into several comparison groups according to the degree and level of the exposure to risk, smoking, blood pressure, serum cholesterol, etc., etc. The exposure to the risk factors is the criteria to separate the groups from the same cohort, from the same village, from the same community, from the same classroom, from the same office, from the same department. And then is the external comparison. In external comparison, we obviously have to have a group from the outside which should be the control one. So the comparison is done in between exposure and the non-exposure groups. That's a smoker, non-smoker, radiologist, non-radiologist, who work in the other departments, ophthalmologist and not ophthalmologist. So all those can be compared. Then is the follow-up. We have selected the group. We know that this group, A group, is under the influence or the exposed to certain causative agent or to the certain factor, and group B is the control one, which is normal population and has got all the same characters but other than the specific causative agent to which they are not exposed. So there must be a regular follow-up of all the participants. The procedures required comprise: number one, periodical medical examination of each member of the cohort A. Then is the review of the review physician and the hospital records. 2. Routine surveillance of the death records. 3. Mailed questionnaires. 4. Telephone calls, periodic home visits. We have to keep our subjects, our cohort members in touch with us, and we have to follow very, very much strictly and very, very much closely, and we see what happens to them in next. Then obviously the follow-up continues. However, in spite of the best efforts, a certain percentage of the losses to follow-up are inevitable due to sometimes the researcher fails, we also fail, the follower fails because the follow-up may not be complete. The member of a cohort or whole of the cohort may be slipped away, may not come up to the end of the research, to the end of the cohort studies. Why? 1. Death. 2. Change of residence, occupation, change of occupation. Somebody was exposed to certain causative agent like chemical, and now he or she is not exposed. So I can say that in spite of best effort, a certain percentage of losses to follow up are inevitable. So and those losses may bias the result. The result may be affected with that. I was telling you, because of death of certain group members of the group of a cohort, change of the residence, occupation, migration, and of course sometimes lack of interest, those may cause some of the members of a cohort to slip away, and that may affect the result. The result may be biased at some time at the end of the day. Then is the analysis. The data are analyzed for the incidence rates of outcome among the exposed and non-exposed, estimation of the risk factor that is there. So incidence rates are the cumulative incidence, as we have discussed in the case control studies or the retrospective studies. The incidence rates can be determined directly in exposed and non-exposed persons. A hypothetical example is given in the following table. We all know the cigarette smokers, if they develop the cancer, that is A. If they did not develop, that is B. And the total is A plus B. And if they're in the non-smokers, I can say this is non-smokers. As far as this table is concerned, this is non-smokers. The only 3 people developed the cancer, the lung cancer, and out of 3,000 only, and the 97 did not, and total was 3,000, and out of the 7,000 exposed, it is 70 who developed cancer and 6930 did not. So out of 7,000 who were exposed to cigarette smoking, or they used to smoke, the 70 developed cancer, and out of 3,000 non-smokers, only 3 people developed cancer. So if we just analyze it and we see the cumulative results, the cumulative incidence among the smokers, A over A/A plus B, that is 70 over 7,000, that is 10 per 1,000. That is 10 per 1,000. And among non-smokers, C over C plus D, that is 3 over 3,000, that is 1 per 1,000. So we can say that among the smoker, the incidence rate or the cumulative incidence is 10%, 10 per 1,000, and out of non-smokers, the incidence is 1 per 1,000. So it means 10 times more. It is not 10%, it's 10 times more percentage of the smokers who developed the cancers. So the estimation of the risk of outcome in the exposed and non-exposed cohorts is calculated in two terms: the relative risk or the relative risk RRR, the relative risk of the the ratio of the risk of the disease cumulative incidence among exposed to non-exposed. The relative risk identifies differences in disease rates between exposed and non-exposed groups. The relative risk RR risk ratio is, first, RR is equal to incidence of the disease among exposed, incidence of the disease among non-exposed. Then is the relative risk, or the RR is, in our example, is RR is equal to 10 by 1. 1 was, if you see it, incidence of the disease among exposed, that was 10 out of 1000, and incidence of the disease among non-exposed, it was 1 out of 1000. So if we divide it by this way, so it will be 10 divided by 1000, 1 divided by 1000, it will be 10. So the RR of the 10 implies that the likely risk of developing carcinoma lung is 10 times more among smokers as compared with the non-smokers. Then the relative risk is a direct measure of the strength of the association between the suspected cause and the effect. The larger the RR, the greater is the strength of association. The relative risk or RR, if RR or the relative risk, the risk of the disease is equal to 1 in the two groups, then there is no difference. Both exposed and non-exposed have got the same chance of developing a disease. That means the cohort study tells us that the certain so and so factor is not the cause of the disease. And if RR is less than 1 or more than 1, the relative risk is more than 1, that means the group of interest has a higher risk of the disease existence of an association between the exposure and the disease rather than the non-exposed. And if RR is less than 1, 1 is more than the relative risk, the group of interest has a lower risk of the disease, and that means the study is not a success. The causative agent is not the cause of the disease. Then is the attributable risk or the risk difference, or the AR, or the attributable risk in the cohort study, the rate of the disease in exposed individuals that can be attributed to the exposure. The rate of the disease in exposed individuals that can be attributed to the exposure. The attributable risk is the excess risk in the exposed groups compared to the unexposed groups. It is expressed as percentage of the incidence rate among the exposed. So we can say the attributable risk, the attribute risk, or the risk difference is incidence rate of the disease among exposed minus incidence among non-exposed, and over divided by incidence rate among the exposed multiplied by 100. So that means 10 minus 1 is equal to the incidence rate of the diseased among exposed and the incidence among non-exposed, slash the incidence rate of the exposed. So over 10, so 10 minus 1 over 10 is equal to, multiplied by 100 is equal to 90%. So the attribute risk is 90%. So attribute risk or the attribute difference, the attribute indicates as to what the event of the disease under study is likely to exposure. So we mean to say that attribute risk indicates to what the extent the disease under study is linked to the exposure. The sample attribute risk indicates that the 90% of the lung cancer among the smokers is due to their smoking. This suggests the amount of the disease that might be eliminated if the factor under study could be controlled, and that is why attribute risk is important. As we have seen, it is 90% among the smokers. So that is very, very much clear that very much risky to smoke. Then is obviously under the cohort study, the types of the cohort, how we make the study. So those may be obviously prospective cohort study, which is actually the backbone of the cohort study or analytical study, epidemiology. Under the observational type of the studies, the follow up the case. We start with the identification of the cohort, we start with the identification of the group, and we follow the group with the exposure of certain specific factor, and we see what happens, whether the disease occurs or not. Then is the retrospective cohort study. we get certain information from the previous knowledge and from the previous history of the patient, and then we follow that case. So it's a half case control and half prospective, but still this is retrospective cohort study. So word retrospective has been mixed with cohort, and then is a combination of the retrospective and prospective studies. Obviously the combination of the two, again it's a cohort, but it is sort of a case control and cohort studies. So three types, repeat it again: prospective, retrospective, and combination of the two. Then is the retrospective cohort or the historical cohort, non-concurrent prospective study. The difference is of the calendar time. The exposure is ascertained from the past records, and follow-up and measurement of the outcome continue into the future. We pick up a case, we see that we ask the person, and for how many years you have been smoking. So the answer is that we have been smoking for 5 years, for 6 years. Then we follow the case for coming 4 years, and then we see after what happens to the patient, to the subjects after 10 years. For example, from the medical records, identify a group of the women who were using OPC, OCP, oral contraceptive pills 10 years ago, and a group of the women who were not using oral contraceptive pills. The interviews of the women are the use of the medical records to determine their history of heart disease from the point of oral contraceptive pills used to the present. So with that we can go forward to see those studies. So it's a mixed type of a study, and that will be a retrospective cohort study. So by doing so we can go with that study, and we can see what happens in next. Then is the difference between case control and cohort study. We continue with it next time. So far it's goodbye, stay blessed.